Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. I literally already read everything and then I accidentally clicked cancel, so everything disappeared. I get to do it again. Yay, I'm so happy about that. But yes, we're going to be talking about Calamity lore here. The lore in Calamity, it's very rich lore, very good lore. Click the eye in the corner if you want to watch a video about the future of Calamity and Yarm and some more things explaining. I'm going to be a little sniffly, sorry about that. But I'm going to just start with reading the lore in the game really quickly here. So, like the lore, I actually never read the lore items in the game that drop from the bosses. So let me read these really quickly, okay? Let's just start right here. So, the Eye of Cthulhu. That eye, how peculiar. I sensed it watching you more intensely as you grew stronger. The Desert Scourge, the great sea worm, appears to have survived the extreme heat and has even adapted to it. What used to be a majestic beast swimming through the water has now become a dried-up and glutinous husk on a constant voracious search for its next meal. Crabalon, a crab and its mushrooms, a love story, and it's interesting how creatures can adapt to given circumstances. The Corruption, the rotten, forever deteriorating landscape of infected life, brought upon by a deadly microbe long ago. It's rumored that the microbe was created through experimentation by a long-dead race, predating the Terrarians. The Eater of Worlds. Perhaps it was just a giant worm infected by the microbe, given centuries to feed and grow on its festering body. Seems likely, given the origins of this place. Skeletron. A curse is said to only affect the elderly. After they are afflicted, they become an immoral vessel for an ancient demon in the underworld. The Slime God. It's a Traversity, one of the most threatening biological terrors ever born. If this creature were allowed to combine every slime on the planet, it would be nearly unstoppable. The Underworld. These obsidian and hellstone towers were once home to thousands of people. Unfortunately for them, they were twisted by their inner demons until they were beyond saving. The Mechanical Bosses. I see you have awakened Draydon's old toys. Once useful tools turned into savage beasts when their AIs went rogue, a mistake that Draydon failed to rectify in time. Skeletron Prime. What a silly, pointless contraption for something created with the essence of pure terror. Draydon obviously took several liberties with his design in this thing. I am not impressed. Better off destroyed. The Destroyer. A machine brought to life by the mighty souls of warriors and built to excavate massive tunnels in the planets to gather resources. Could have been proven useful if he didn't have to have an obsession with turning everything into a tool of destruction. The biomechanical Watchers of the Night, originally created as security using the souls of extracted from human eyes. These creatures did not belong in this world. It's best to be rid of them. Cryogen. You managed to bring down what dozens of sorcerers long ago could not. I'm unsure if it has grown weaker over the decades of its imprisonment. The Brimstone Crag. Ah, this place. The scent of broken promises, pain, and eventual death is heavy within the air. Brimstone Elemental, the most powerful of the elementals, bent on exacting revenge upon the bloody inferno that demolished her home. Finally put to rest, she will suffer no longer from the grief caused by the deaths of her people. Plantera. Well done, you killed a plant. However, this plant was used as a vessel to house the spirits of those unfortunate enough to find their way down here. I wish you luck in dealing with the fallout. Calamitous Doppelganger. You are indeed stronger than I thought, though the bloody inferno still lingers, observing your progress. The Ocean. Take care to not disturb the deep waters of this world. You may awaken something more terrifying than death itself. The Leviathan and the Siren. An odd pair of creatures, once seeking companionship, and the other seeking sustenance. Perhaps two genetic misfits outcast from their homes that found comfort in assisting one another. The Aquatic Scourge. A horror born of pollution and unstable hunger. I'm just gonna say unstable hunger. I don't know what it is. Based on the size alone, it was just merely a juvenile. These scourge creatures are the largest aquatic predators and are very rarely do they such frequent on shallow waters. Ostomoreus, a titanic cyborg infected by the starborn disease expelled from the belly of the ancient god. The destruction of this creature will not prevent the spread of the disease. God of the stars and spreader of the astral infection, though is not the progenitor of the infection, that scaleless beast is still out there, devouring celestial bodies by the dozens. Golem. To think my people once worshipped this as a god. We have come far from the ancient times. A horrific amalgam of steel, flesh, and infection, capable of destroying an entire civilization in just one onslaught. Its plague nuke barrage can leave an entire area uninhabitable for months. Shameless that it came to this, but the plague must be contained. Ravager. One of the many flesh golems crafted through the forbidden necromancy to counter my unstoppable forces. Its creators were slaughtered by it in moments after its conception. It's for the best that it's been destroyed. Lunatic cultist, the gifted one that terminated my grand summoning so long ago with its uncanny powers over the arcane. Someone I held in such contempt for his actions is now deceased. His sealing ritual undone. Prepare for the end. Your impending doom approaches. Duke Fishron, the mutant terror of the sea, was once the trusted companion of an old king who tamed it using its favorite treat. Long ago, the creature flew into desperation from the raging, bloody inferno, consuming its home, ultimately finding its way to the ocean. The Red Moon. We long ago feared the light of the Red Moon. Many went mad, others died, but a scant few became blessed with the wealth of cosmic understanding. So yes, that's the... my voice going. But that's the item lore, and if you didn't know, you can tell from... by Ravager, where it says, by my unstoppable forces, we know that Yarim is the one who is narrating all of the lore items. So yes, let's move on to the lore page on the wiki. By the way, there will be a link in the description and an eye in the corner if you want the link to the wiki where you can read all up on this lore yourself if I am talking too stupidly or annoying, because I know I don't read this the best. I don't read this the best. So, I'm just going to start reading right from the Desert Scourge. So, yes, the Desert Scourge. When the Sea King, Amadeus, refused to partake in the forbidden ritual to awaken the Moon Lord / the Dark Lord from his slumber and imprisonment on the moon of the jungle tyrant king, Yarim had the witch Calamity evaporate all the sea's water with fire and brimstone. This event caused the great sea worm, now known as the Desert Scourge, to go on rampage. Deprived of its previous food source, crab and shark meat, it devoured all the inhabitants of the now dried up sea kingdom. Now the sea worm has dried out and become a hollow shell of its former self, constantly seeking fresh meat to devour. So basically, it's the ocean, I can't remember the name, aquatic scourge. But it's all dried out, because Calamity's dried out the ocean. Click the eye in the corner, again, for the video from earlier that I had about explaining a little bit more of the later things that aren't in Calamity yet, in their lore. So, yes, let's move on to Crabalon. Calamity's legendary ocean incineration killed off countless creatures, boiling them alive or leaving them for the dead in an inhospitable environment. The large but docile crabs that once roamed the ocean floor sought refuge underground. Instinct guided them to the dank caves, most resembling their former habitat. But it was simply not enough. These crabs perished in fields of luminescent mushrooms, their corpses becoming hosts to innumerable fungi. Only the bare scraps of meat remain in their parasite-ridden husks, compelled to move and feed even in death. So Crabalon is, again, another ocean-like thing that had to move away, because Calamitous, well, technically Yarim is evil and made Calamitous destroy the oceans. And now it's stuck in the caves, all the mushrooms infecting its body. So let's move on to the next thing, the Hive Mind. The Hive Mind, the grotesque creature that lies in the depths of the corruption, is actually a colony of creatures that travel together, combining their abilities to form a greater presence responsible for spreading and sustaining the corruption. Corruptions are just breeding grounds to creatures which form larger and larger clusters. It's just a bunch of random crappy things all over the ground of the corruption, just waiting, coming together to fight you and to spread the corruption and keep the corruption alive and eventually maybe possibly take up the whole entire world. Now we move on to the Crimson side, and if you don't know what the Crimson, the Paraformers are, it's just the Hive Mind version in the Crimson. It wasn't in my playthrough, so you might not know what it is, but if you're watching this, I assume you probably already read a lot of the Calamity lore. So, once a single large worm, the Paraformers are separate entities that have lost their need for their eyes after evolving to live in a parasite. To live as a parasite inside the creature called the Brain of Cthulhu. If they lose their host, they bury as a group into the depths of the Crimson and wait for a new host to come across them. Unluckily for you, you are their new host. So yeah, they want to eat you. Like a lot of things in Calamity. They all want to eat you and kill you. So moving on to the Slime God, this will end up the boss section of lore for easy mode, but we will I will do other easy mode type lore. So let's just do the Slime God. The Slime God, one of the very first creatures to ever come into existence in the Terrarian's world, is the core and the control unit of all things slimy. Slimes are some of the first creatures to evolve from the very first living cells present from ancient times. And even though they do not possess sentience, possess sentience themselves, their core is what gives them shape and allows them to move about the world. The slimy god was born after a bacteria evolved and began consuming other bacteria around it. Eventually, after gaining enough cellular mass, it began absorbing larger fauna, and gaining intelligence from each creature it enveloped. It became large enough to begin influencing other beings around it with telekinesis. Through telekinetic energy, the slime god shapes its slimes from water and various dead plant and animal matter. It wills them to consume more dead matter and continue growing the slime population. Through this process, the slime god has formed the Crimulan and Ebonian slimes gods to defend itself from any possible threats. So yeah, that's the boss section. If you were listening to the lore in game, the slime god, if it was let grow, would just consume everything. So that's why, luckily, we killed it in the series and in the way that the lore is stating it. So it doesn't just consume the universe. There's a lot of things that kind of would consume the universe if we weren't there to stop them, to be honest with you, in Calamity. So yes, let's move on to the next section, the biome section. Okay, so let's just start out with the biome section right away. Let's just skip down to the Brimstone Crag. And by the way, all the next lores after here are super long, so I can get, like, really stuttery here, because I'm just constantly reading for so long. And I think I'll just include, we'll include, yes, just, there's two biomes. It's the Brimstone Crag and the Sulphur Sea for easy mode, at least. So, let's just read up on these guys. I know you guys want to hear it if you haven't read it. And I'm going to start stuttering. I'm losing my voice a bit. It doesn't matter. It's fine. So, here we go. Brimstone Crag, smoking slag, crackling flames, and charred stone are all that remain of the underworld's once grand civilization. Centuries ago, primitive societies found their ways into these scorching caverns and discovered power in the form of an eternal red flame. They grew up to worship the flame in its otherworldly might, and over the course of generations founded a mighty empire as magic as they learned to harness the red flame for themselves. The hierarchy of the privilege and magical prowess fostered great conflict. Those in power hoarded power, restricting the lower classes' knowledge and suppressing research that threatened them. One can revolt against the restrictive and greedy ways of the capital, but like many others in the Empire's history, they were exiled. The capital waited for them to return for revenge, when those in power would crush them as an example. However, that day would never come, for those exiled had come upon a curious revelation. Centuries spent living in the presence of the eternal flame had led them to these mages to develop a natural connection to the brand of magic which utilized brimstone, rather than a forced link, such as the rituals carried out by the capital. Forced to stop relying on the eternal flame, they began to develop their own styles of magic, drawing from darker forces. As they built upon their own strength and training, this clan soon grew up to be powerful as those that controlled the eternal flame. Yet they had long decided against revenge, realizing that such an act would lower them to the level of those in hell. Decades passed, generations passed down, Decades passed, and generations passed down the gift of brimstone magic from parent to child. In time, it would be this clan to sire the witch, Calamitous. The Empire of Hell grew weak over the course of those long years, splintered by infighting and draconian rule. It was the beginning of a once grand nation's collapse, but its final death was at the hands of a conflict long past. An older Calamitous descended to the lands her ancestors called home, and initiated a ruthless massacre, butchering the poor and the weak on the outskirts first, and then working in. Every death was another hateful soul twisted to her cause, every corpse another revenant of her command, every life taken another worshipper deprived from the eternal flame at the Empire's heart. These souls were twisted into abominations which, to this day, haunt the slag. When no others remained, she corroded the essence of the flame with corrupt magic and flayed its spirit into bone. Without joy, Calamity fulfilled her orders and unknowingly avenged an ancient grudge long since lost to history. All that remained of the once grand civilization was smoking slag, crackling flames, and charred stone. So yeah, that's the brimstone slag. Everything has so much more meaning once you read the actual lore in Calamity, and it's so rich and good. I gotta say, it's just, the lore in Calamity is just so good, and I'm happy that I don't have to re-record this, because I keep pausing it every once in a while to make it work. So, next big biome, this is the last biome, in the biome section, last thing, it's the sulfurous sea. If you don't know what that is, it's the sea over on the side of the world, it's on the side of the dungeon, and it's all sulfurous and gross, you know, and yeah. Watch my series. Click the eye in the corner. I don't know if I'm going to remember all the eyes in the corners, guys. But click the eye in the corner to see the series there. It's, you'll see the series that, of me playing. It's not going to take you directly to the Sulphurous Sea. It's just going to show you the series. But, let's get to the Sulphurous Sea. The Sulphurous Sea. A festering shore where waves hiss upon lapping the crumbling stone of the beach. This is the Sulphur Sea, where the air stings your eyes and each breath is a labor. Centuries ago, this was an ordinary coast where the sun glimmed across blue waters, and fish danced in light, a paradise, yet to Yaram, a simple tool, nothing more than a tome for his disposal of the dead, who were of no importance. The beginning of Yaram's rule was unimaginably harsh, far worse than those who came before him. His first action upon taking the throne was to enforce control upon much of those surrounding the kingdom's cities and capitals. He succeeded in it all. Any who resisted further had their people massacred or captured to serve under inhuman conditions, where they often collapsed or ended their own lives to escape a worse fate. Inevitably, the body count rose. This increased further until finally, given no other options to dispose of the bodies, Yarm turned to what now is the Sulphur Sea. At first, it was but a gradual flow of corpses, only those of which could not be contained within the dungeon's crypts. This continued for quite some time, until a threat soon arose among the spirits of the dead, a raging amalgamation of hatred and desires, which tore through any of the forces sent to dispose of the bodies into the dungeon. Yarm realized it would be unwise to feed more souls to the growing threat. Thus he began to dispose of more corpses into the far ocean. The once crystal-clear waters turned dark with blood and entrails of many, choking life out of its water. This process destroyed the delicate and precious ecosystem. Only the hardiest and most desperate of the creatures in its bay clung onto their last hopes, and soon adapted to the toxic environment. As the years passed, the waters suffered only more offenses, serving for further despicable purposes, such as the containment of Silva, or the dumping grounds of the runoff of Draydon's experiments. At last, Yarm's rule as a tyrant had been solidified, allowing no resistance, or his anger was pacified. The flow of corpses was stemmed, and the cruel practice had ended. However, the damage was done. The sea was irreparably ruined, though now, centuries later, the only trace of the assault on the ecosystem is the stain of bleach and poisoned water. Dangerous and toxic creatures swim within the murky waters, devouring any life which would stray into their presence. This is the Sulphur Sea, a story and examples of the extent of the tyrant's tragic rule. So the Sulphur Sea, it's a garbage dump. It's literally a garbage dump. It's just, you know, Yarm's just like, I got trash, throw it in the sea. So throw it in the ocean, guys. I don't want to deal with my trash. Go throw it in the ocean. No one cares about it. Just go do that. Have some fun. And yeah. So that's what it is. Let's move on to the NPC section. NPC and armor. I'm going to combine them. They're really short here. Okay, so this is the what's it called? NPC, because there's only one NPC, and it's easy mode NPC. And I believe only one NPC. I'm not. No. I think there's more than one NPC. I don't know. But we're gonna do one NPC and one armor, because that's the only easy mode stuff. So here we go. This is Amadeus. Of the kingdoms of the world, among those long gone, and those which still stand today, none can compare to the domain of the Ocean Crown. It houses vibrant coral and pearl like a jewel on the dull seabed. Those who lived there were prideful, and they distanced themselves from the rest of the world, certain in their position that they were a superior to the beings who traversed the land. This led them to be seclusive, and though many knew its existence and beauty, nearly none of them knew the world within its walls. It lay far beneath the surface, away from its prying eyes and grasping hands of the humans who sought its riches, and thus existed in a peacefully, without disruption, for hundreds of years. Yet change is inevitable, and the tranquil world beneath the waves would soon be breached. Amadeus was hired to royalty, and was destined to take the throne to lead to his peoples once he became of the age. Yet Amadeus' disparity to the rest of his kind was quite evident from the moment he could make his own decisions. Choosing to explore what lay beyond the walls of the palace, he enjoyed the company of dolphins and other fish, learning much of the world from them. However, one day he learnt of the terrors of the world above. A whale he had been following was brutally injured and harpooned to death, only then to be hauled onto a great wooden ship. The water turned crystal clear to a murky red with blood of the animal within seconds. He could not approach the area for days due to the nausea induced by the mere smell of it. He now knew the terrible weapons and ambitious minds of the sailors who often searched for his hidden city, looking for treasures to ransack and sell. He wished only the best of his people, and as he grew older, he began to worry for the protection of the kingdom in which they lived. In time, as his father passed, Amadeus inherited the crown and gained a family. No longer would he explore beyond the walls into the vibrant blue, or amuse to life's curiosities, drifting into the open waters. He constantly worried for the well-being of his family, never allowing his children to explore for themselves. He was brave, and a warrior in heart, but weighed down by the burdens of life. He feared that he could not protect them all. He vowed never to allow his people to venture to the land above. And yet, even with his greatest efforts, it was once more inevitable that if they would not change, change would meet them. A man who could breathe as easily as they could, move with equal swiftness, strike with as much power, if not more, swam to the depths to hold counsel with Amadeus. He sought no treasures, would take no captives. All he wanted was for Amadeus to listen to an offer, one that would grant power, magic, great control, and Amadeus refused. He could sense the madness in the mind of the man who had come from above, nothing like the simple, greedy ambitions of the men who wanted to live as kings, rich from the ocean's bounty, but rather a burning hatred that had cooled to the razor's edge of obsidian. Amadeus would take no part in his schemes. Upon his refusal, the man had nothing to say. He stood silently and nodded before leaving. They would never see him again, yet that night, their world would turn to one of scorching flames. So, Amadeus, not really knowing it, he was doing what he was supposed to. I mean, what was Amadeus supposed to do? Yarm came to him and said, Hey, bud, I don't really like, I want you to come with me. I want you to team with me. And if you don't, I'm going to destroy your entire world and where you live. Okay? Sound good, right? And he said no. He didn't know that he was going to destroy it, and he said no. So, his world was destroyed, and now Amadeus is, he's just gone. He's actually it's a sunken sea. So yes, that's that part, and we're just going to do this armor thing's really quick right here, which is the last thing of the video. The combat gear of wait, I forgot to say what it was. Stagel armor, the combat gear of a certain ninja clan, infused with the energy of the same god whose power they drew upon. However, many of these clan secrets are lost when they were wiped out, including the construction of the traditional armor, only possessing a fraction of the original's agility and strength. This reconstruction more closely reflects the condition of the armor worn by Status, the last of his bloodline, at the end of his life. So yeah, this is just some armor that's been created by, I guess we assume, the Slime God. And I believe, I don't know where I heard this, so don't quote me on this, but I believe that Status, the person who was wearing the armor or whatever, worshipped Cygnus, because they were like rogue kind of thing, because Status is all kind of like the rogue class. So yeah, that's the entire video. It was really long. I think this is really long. Oh my gosh. But that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like Calamity lore. And if you're listening to this end part right now, you like your Calamity lore, and it's hard to listen to me read and speak. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I had to go get a drink of water in the middle of it, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. So please like the video if you like it, share if you liked it, and subscribe if you're new around here. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.